Добре дошли на Рали Бреслау.
Welkom bij de Rally BRESLAU Poland 2018.
Benvenuti alla BRESLAU Poland.
Привет, Вики, BRESLAU Rallye.
Bienvenue au Rallye BRESLAU Poland.
Zapraszamy na rajd Breslau.
Komt gerust een keer kijken naar de BRESLAU Rally in Polen.
Willkommen zur Rallye Breslau in Polen.
Welcome to the BRESLAU Rally.
Welcome to the Rally BRESLAU Poland 2018. This is the video report dedicated to the rally, which took place at the beginning of July. This time I decided to make the summary of the event, with my impressions, not in the form of a long story, but to simply present you the event following the action of what I filmed. It will just be storytelling rather than reading a long text. Yes! Attending the Breslau has been planned for a long time. But the finish of the Breslau Rally was always on the same time as the start of the Silkway, and to rush from one big event to another, I will say from my own experience, is not good for anyone. We understood from rally director Alexander Kovachev that there were never before any Russian journalists or participants in the rally, and he made us an offer which we could not refuse. So, here we are at the rally. Administrative and technical checks are run more or less in the same way for all competitions. But here there was one exception that I did not see anywhere else. This is the first aid training, which does not show you how to place a neck brace or something simple, but it deals with the actions on how to remove a victim from the car and how to correctly perform a kiss of life. The training was done by highly experienced military doctors, so everything was strict and clear. For some crews, this turned out to be a daunting task, and they had to repeat the action several times until they managed to get it done properly.
Okay, very important. The patient is conscious, head down, you up, you know, here, head down. Yes? Because the IR system is closed. Maybe close the tongue, maybe upper, ever. It's very important. The IR system is closed.
First, it's necessary to raise the head of the victim in order to free the airways. And then, with a sharp movement, pull the victim out of the car and perform the kiss of life. Only after a successful completion of this training, the competitors got their dossier stamped, and only then the crew could continue their administrative and technical checks. Some years ago, at the Ladoga Trophy, tragedy almost happened. The pilot of the Estonian crew, Ausprit, had suffocated with exhaust gases in one of the special stages in a swamp. And I remember well how Jess Goodwin, the pilot of the English crew, and the other participants, how they saved Ausprit's life by performing first aid. They did what they could. Maybe they were not very confident, but nevertheless, they managed to save his life. And on the next day, Ausprit won the special stage. Such a training is very useful for Russian organizers, especially when you consider that our trophy raids include many swamp sections, where the exhaust gases can poison the crews. As you know, those gases have no color or smell. At some point, you just pass out. Here we go. What is Rally Breslau Poland? The organizers create the event as a combination of two totally different motorsport disciplines mixed into one rally. This is the cross-country, or as we say, rally raid. And this is off-road, with extreme natural obstacles to be driven. The fact is that in Europe, the phrase trophy raid is not used in the motorsport. Everyone simply calls it off-road. So, off-road and extreme, in this case, are the same thing. And if you don't understand me, no worries. I sometimes don't even understand myself. The Breslau Rally is a roadbook rally. The route uses roads through forests and fields and open polygons, allowing the organizers to make a huge number of special stages in a relatively small area. In general, all the tracks are made for rally raid, especially when you take in mind that the area where the event is run is the biggest active military polygon in Europe, in Drawsko-Pomorskie in Poland. By the way, this area also hosts one of the rounds of the World Cup cross-country rallies. The soil is mainly sand, but there are also a large number of dirt tracks in the forest. For the complete rally, the cross-country route differs from the extreme track only by the absence of the extreme sections and obstacles. In addition, to get the extreme category into their world, they have to drive hard, use their winches, climb hills, pass swamps, deep waters and go on. As I'm used to very long Russian off-road, with swamps and forgotten forest tracks, I expected the extreme category to have many places where they have a real off-road experience. But unfortunately, during the rally day, they come across several sections only. These are usually river crossings, canals, ditches and swamps with plenty of mud and water. On the rest of the route, the crews had to find their way navigating by the roadbook. Frankly speaking, this is the format of the European trophy race. Preference is given to speed and distance with some extreme off-road sections. This year, as part of the BRESLAU Rally, a small 3-day race called BRESLAU 500 appeared, which was also counted for the German Rally Raid Championship. It started a day earlier and the crews had the opportunity to race and get results for 2 classifications at once, BRESLAU 500 and the Marathon Rally Raid. It all started with the BRESLAU 500. For all crews, the first day was quite short. I would say an introduction. As usual, this is done to warm up the participants, so that the crews can get used to the rally, fix the last things on the car, learn a little bit about the roadbook, etc. In all rallies, there are crews who come for only one purpose, to win. And there are also those who come for good results. And as usual, there are those who are just there for pure adventure and fun. In the bike and ATV class, this is clearly visible. Someone is very fast, the other goes slowly, and some go behind all the others. Looking at them is just pure fun. In the roadbook, the organizers have marked that at this place the competitors should turn left and immediately turn right. There's a small river that they have to drive over and then they turn right. But most of the crews, and mainly the bike riders, 7 or 8 quads, they took the straight road, got lost, then turned around and lost a lot of time. By this time, only one biker, knowing how to read the roadbook, immediately turned in the right direction and gained the advantage of 5 to 7 minutes. No one is without mistakes, even the best teams. The winner of many European trophy raids, Jim Marsden, competes in the extreme category, and he came to the rally with a new co-pilot. Each morning they started as frontrunners, always reaching the extreme sections as 5th or 7th. Apparently, the co-pilot had troubles reading the roadbook. But Jim's car is not only fast, it is best suited for this kind of terrain. Here, the winch of the car is what makes the difference. And for those who do not know it, Jim Marsden produces very fast and powerful competition winches. The time they lost in the navigation in the fast sections of the route, they were able to gain back on the extreme parts. Simply drive up the obstacle, hook on the rope, winch out of the place, and continue on the track. In Russia, Jim's winch is not so popular, but mainly because of its price. To be honest, we're very excited about the trucks in the extreme category, because we know all about heavy off-road, but there's no trucks racing in Russia. The dust on the track was raised not only by the heavyweight trucks, but also by everyone passed around us. The great Colin McRae said, "Straight roads are for fast cars, twisty roads are for fast drivers." Those off-road fans who love rally raid have already noticed that most of the cars in the cross-country category are not exactly rally vehicles. Well, maybe with the exception of a few trucks, Toyotas and Fords, which look like super production cars. For those who do not quite understand, I will say it easier. These are not the vehicles that drift and slide into the corners and turn and put on speed records. There are many G-Wagons, a couple of bowlers, rear-wheel drive buggies and different Pajeros. But these are not exactly the cars we're used to see in the Russian Championship or at the cross-country World Cup. As for the extreme category cars, almost all of them comply with the Ladoga Trophy technical regulations, and they could start in TR3 or Proto class. Without a doubt, one of the fastest cars was the one of Jim Marsden. He has a powerful engine, 650 horsepower and a good suspension. I think you can agree that in a category where one car is 650 horsepower and the others are no more than 250, there's no question about who has the advantage, especially when you consider the route is very fast. I remember well, the day before the start, I told myself that the fate of the first place was already decided, and yes, it turned out that way. Nevertheless, the fight for the victory and the overall ranking in the extreme category was still there, no matter what. Around 150 vehicles lined in at the start of the rally. About 40 bikes, 15 quads, 17 side-by-sides, 60 cars and 17 trucks. Unfortunately, after the finish of the Breslau 500, the 3 days racing option, 1/3 of the competitors went straight back home, while the rally moved on to the second bivouac, on the outskirts of the town of Drawsko-Pomorskie, and stayed there for a long 5 days. The route consists of a number of loops, and it is not very clear which of them should be driven at which moment, so crews rush around the track in search of the right path. This military polygon is considered the largest in Europe, and it's huge. The variety of tracks, roads, tank highways, etc. allow the organizers to make combinations of an unbelievable complexity. From above, it looks like this. First, there's twisty zigzags along main tracks, and then they go across the road, and after that, it's not really clear where to go. Anyway, the road book is complicated in some sections, and it does require some skills to be used. Of course, the tracks for the motorbikes and the extreme cars do not overlap for safety reasons. But when watched from the top, it all looks something like this. In the early mornings, the polygon was closed. The military had their training, and from early afternoon until the closing of the stage, which happened even after midnight, the competitors ran across the routes in the polygon, and this went on for 5 days. We went out there as if we were doing a normal job, and I cannot say that this is very amazing. The press points were almost identical, the crews knew all the turns already from many races, but on the other hand, what's wrong? If you ride the same terrain from year to year, you will surely know it with your eyes closed. And luckily, we always found some kind of extreme point to shoot, or as you could say, the point found us. If you think for a while and plan ahead, you can find yourself in a very interesting places much earlier than the first participants or the orga on the route. The road network of the polygon consists of many tracks, including tarmac highways, which allow you to chase the competitors from almost all points, without the need to leave the good roads. If it was necessary to quickly find some point on the map, it's definitely a job for Michael. It somehow occurred to me that if I had to work and create maps for the Pentagon, they would never have found Russia on their maps. Is that correct? Yes, correct. We are on the 4th day of the rally and the organizers finally made the track go through a swamp. Can you guess how they named the section? Imagine they called it Ladoga Swamp. You might think that we are on the Ladoga, which takes place in Karelia. No, we are over 2,000 kilometers away from it, in Poland. It looks very similar. The organizers have never been to Ladoga, but they know it very well from the video reports. They know what Ladoga swamps are. And really, in the polygon, they found such a nice swampy area with the same grass, the same frogs, with the same sticky bottom and the same kind of action. This extreme section had to be passed 2 times, and the drivers who decided to drive through the swampy part got water in their engines. The French team of Frank Dorel and Françoise Hollender were fighting to keep the 3rd place in the ranking. They could get to the podium only if they managed to finish the last 3 days without any major problems. If they would not lose their 1.5-hour advantage to the 4th team in the classification. But unfortunately, the first trouble happened exactly at the Ladoga swamp. Frank forced the car into the water and got stuck. Apparently, he wanted to use speed and jump over the deepest part of the swamp, but the water got into the engine. It took them more than half an hour to solve the problem, and that was only the beginning. On the last day, the participants had to drive one easy special stage with a single extreme section. They got so stuck that all their time advantage melted like an ice cream on a hot sunny day. Arriving as 4th competitor at the section, they got stuck and could not continue with the front runners, breaking the winch cable 3 times, eventually requesting help from the Orga. At this race, if you're towed out by the organizers, you only get a time penalty. And we saw more than once how cars recovered by the organization were on next day's start line and the teams were racing again. For example, the navigator of Jim Marston, he used the extension ropes of the organization's recovery truck because his ropes were not long enough to reach the winch point. Finally, after losing so much time in the extreme section and only after being helped by the organization, Frank and Françoise actually managed to remain on the 3rd place overall and reach the podium. The 2nd place was also for a young French team, and victory in the extreme class was won by the English-Portuguese team of Jim Marston and Helder da Rocha. We had a long discussion, Michael and me, regarding the recovery assistance to the crews on the side of the organization, but we never reached a common conclusion. I believe that after being helped by the organization, a crew should be able to continue with some kind of penalty. That's the way it's done in this event. And I think it's the correct way, because this is not a professional sport. For everyone here, all the participants, this is just a hobby. It's adventure, and maybe for some of them it's business. But the majority of the competitors taking part in the rally, they're not racing for trophies, but for the spirit and the feeling of being together in a nice and friendly atmosphere. So, now it's time to talk about a different, important thing. We talk about the women in this rally. On the start line of the extreme category, 21 crews got their machines ready, and in 7 of them there were women, 2 as drivers and the other 5 co-pilots. I must say they had a really hard time. Being a co-pilot in the extreme is a hard physical job, and there's a Russian classic that perfectly tells a story for such women. She who will stop the running stallion, and she who will enter the burning house to help. And I could easily add, if needed, she will even repair the front axle of the car. I want to mention Françoise Hollander. I don't know how to express myself, but she's a bit older than her rivals. But it does not make any difference. She was running and doing the hard work with the same or better speed and precision as the others, bringing Frank to the 3rd place overall. And then the organizers told us the story of Françoise and Frank, how they met in Balkan Off-Road Rally, fell in love and raced together. To be honest, if I would be racing in the extreme category, I would take a truck as my vehicle of choice. They're big, they're heavy, powerful, scary, but so attractive. There's dust in the sky, water splashes, big waves, and you can agree that in our Russian trophy raids, you will never see anything like this. But what they definitely lack is our Russian deep forest tracks with never-ending ruts and mud holes. It turns out that they drive on the sandy polygon, where we, as Russians, would simply say, I will drive this with my car. There were 2 categories for the trucks, cross-country and extreme. And in the extreme, they were separated into 2 subclasses, trucks up to 7.5 tons and trucks over 7.5 tons. The big ones are mainly MANs, the small ones are the Unimogs. And you certainly notice that many of the MANs have an external roll cage with a grille in front of the windshield. This is not just by coincidence. As you can see, the aerodynamics of the truck are easily beaten by the refrigerator you have in your home. And a few years ago, one of the trucks was so fast entering a deep water crossing that the windshield was pushed into the cabin. Luckily, there were no major injuries. But since then, on most of the MANs, the drivers put such grills in front of their windows. It's very interesting to watch the trucks getting prepared to pass a swampy section. They drive slowly to the edge, take a detailed look, line in one after the other, and prepare for the big show. For some of them, it takes more than 15 minutes to unwind the steel winch cable and get the thing sorted to tackle the mud. In the trucks, under 7.5 tons are mostly Unimogs, and everything is much more funny. It's not surprising that here we see a very special and very crazy fan. Often displays his one-of-a-kind Unimog banner in front of the MANs when they pass around. Just take a look at his Unimog. You will understand everything. So, let's move from the heavyweights to the light ones, to the bikes. Here were the most entries, and the fight for the ranking was most interesting to see. For the first time in this rally, 3 crews from Lithuania had entered. Eugenis Petruskevich, Arūnas Nedzinas, taking the 3rd place in BRESLAU 500, and Aidas Bubinas, who many of us know as a competitor of the Doga Trophy. And as we said, in the bike class, the situation was very interesting. Even though the first and second place were decided, for the third, the situation was different. For these two riders, the difference between them after 7 days of rally is just 14 seconds. And tomorrow, at the last special stage, everything will be decided. And how they will manage their fight for the third place, I will just let them explain. At the end, Aidas won the third place, and together with the winner in the bike class, 2 trophies from Rally Breslau Poland go to Lithuania. Congratulations for the team. It seems to me that this rally is just for our GAS Brake Sport team. And I'm not joking. The routes are very good, there are many fast teams among all the competitors, but there are no world-class drivers or machines. And that means that everyone has almost equal chances to enter the rally and get to the podium. I do not speak about our off-road crews for the extreme category, because that's a different story. The rally director, Alexander Kovachev, knows very well about the Russian off-road, about the large number of off-road followers in Russia, and he wonders why there are no Russian competitors coming to the Breslau. It would be nice if Russian teams come to our rally, because many Russians come to holidays in Bulgaria, and many of them even have private properties there. Therefore, we're more than glad to see them on an alternative holiday at our event. The main philosophy of our organization is friendship and a good time spent together. Alexander Kovachev, he told us about the other event in the autumn, and it's called the Balkan Off-Road Rally. He said that everything there is different. There's magnificent nature, huge terrains, fantastic mountains, and a finish line right on the sandy beach of the Black Sea. The concept of the event is like a marathon rally, like Africa Eco Race or the classic Dakar. Come on, you'll not regret it. And with this, I want to put a break. It is possible that we will find ourselves on the routes of the Balkan Off-Road Rally in the autumn, or that perhaps we will return after a year to the Rally Breslau Poland. But for now, I would like to thank the organizers for the kind invitation, and a special thanks to the press team, the other photographers and videographers. Thanks to all the participants for the interesting moment that you created during the rally. And of course, many thanks to the readers and viewers of the X-Road Media Portal. And our next report will be from, of course, there will be a next one, because the most interesting thing begins where the road ends. Farewell, my job is a bit dusty, but still I'm outside in fresh air. Oh yeah, so good.